First and foremost, I just want to understand this leak. Is this moving beyond the initial leak, the initial breaking news in November 2019, which at that point of time we only knew that a dozen or so activists' phones had been hacked into? Is this a list of journalists from that original story, or has there been a fresh attempts at hacking Indian citizens' phones since then?
So, Sarah, if you recall in 2019, when that episode came to light, the Indian government wrote to WhatsApp. In fact, the IT minister wrote to WhatsApp asking them how come this privacy breach had occurred. So, in reply, WhatsApp, I think in November, WhatsApp replied, which was carried by all newspapers. It's public. It's matter of public record. WhatsApp told the government that it had brought to the notice of the government of Indian government about these hacks in May and September, and I think they also gave a number of 121 at that time. So after which I don't know what happened, what exchanges happened between WhatsApp and the government, and at that time, Sarah, people were also expecting that the government would write to the NSO also, the company which only does deals with governments, right? And NSO has clearly said it only has agreements with government for supply of whatever the software, spyware or whatever. So now this list extends way beyond 2019. This list also has a number of potential hacks as late as June 2021. In fact, my telephone, which was sent for a proper verification at the lab, Amnesty's technical lab, as well as the Forbidden Stories to their experts, shows a breach in June 2021. So, and there are other examples also, I would say. So, I mean, those details will come out. So it really goes beyond, and there are way more people than were detected at that time. Yeah.
So many disturbing factors to this new breaking news. You're saying a breach even in 2021. But the question there you've touched upon, was the government of India first not aware of any such surveillance? That in itself would be worrying. What is our government doing? If the government is not responsible or aware of such surveillance, are they concerned at all? What steps have been taken since 2019 to identify those responsible for these cyber attacks, to secure our Indian telecommunication channels, to prevent such attacks in the future? So much concern over all of these questions, MK Venu. But what next? Are we expecting more tomorrow? First, 2019, we had a list of activists. Today, we have a list of, I think, around 40 journalists. Is there more expected tomorrow?
So, Sarah, if you just read the framing piece article,
which I haven't had a chance of doing, MK Venu. We've just been live all evening.
Okay, we've just uploaded a framing piece, which is a broader piece by Siddharth Varadarajan, who anchored this story and is my co-founding editor. And Siddharth's piece clearly points out that in the next few days, more names will be revealed, those of not only activists, journalists, politicians, some opposition leaders, some constitutional authorities, even perhaps judges. So it's quite a wide list, a widespread kind of phenomenon now. And Sarah, it's also interesting to note that many of the names, as and when they come out in the next 2-3 days, people will immediately realize that they were not necessarily, big rivals of the government or big critics of the government. So, so it's a fascinatingly secular list, I would say.
No, look, in all seriousness, these are people who have been working to uphold constitutional rights through constitutional means. And it looks like they are being targeted, they are being hacked via unconstitutional means. But I want to ask you, M.K. Venu, again, when this issue was raised in Parliament, at that point of time, the government didn't give a clear answer as to who was responsible, who was behind this, who paid for this, who could afford to pay for this. But it cited the law, and it claimed that under the law, it has the power legally to intercept, monitor, decrypt any information in quote-unquote the interest of the country, which of course is a very loose definition. Who defines interests of the country? But so I just want, from what I can understand, the government says they are legally allowed to do this, but the government of India actually doesn't have the ability or the technology to do this. Is that correct? They would have to buy this or get this technology from somewhere?
See, Sarah, that it is not the question of whether any government, forget about India, can buy this technology. It's a high-tech market, surveillance market is an open market, and this Israeli company apparently happens to be the best because it has as its members, military intelligence officials who had worked in the Israeli government. So it has a reputation, this company. Now, this company would sell to governments, as they say, but the company is also saying in its rejoinder to Forbidden Stories and the entire the collaborative in this effort to all the media companies that the database is, according to them, is right, but they're saying that the purpose could be different. Now, they are saying that what they're implying is the purpose may not be surveillance; it may be different for enabling governments to sort of to access these numbers. So now somebody needs to then come out and say what is the purpose, right? So we need a reply from somebody, right? Saying then what is the purpose? What is that? I mean, it was not selling soap or toothpaste was not the purpose. I mean, there could be commercial purposes also to to test market or to understand the mood of the consumer, etc. So entirely the onus is on the government. So as far as the government is concerned, there is no bar on buying such software, but the Indian government is committed to, constitutionally speaking, committed to follow strict procedures under the Indian Telegraph Act for interception of the old system of phones, and if it's online or internet based thing, it has to follow the relevant provision, the IT Act. So now that all these things somebody needs to look at it. Now who will look at it is a question that everybody would be asking.
So M.K. Venu, let me ask you, this is the knowledge that anyone, a civilian like you, me, anyone can be spied on, can be put under surveillance by until now unknown identity. All of our intimate details, financial transactions, all of that can be accessed is deeply disturbing. It's very worrying. We wonder, are we living under a surveillance state? I mean, are there any rules? Are there any laws? This is a banana republic. But when this first broke in 2019, there was just no clarity. We never seemed to manage to get any clarity or get to the bottom of this story. Do you think that things will change? Will we get any closer to knowing what's going on, who's behind this now?
Actually, Sarah, we had, since 2019, we've had so much progress in the investigation of these kind of hacks. For instance, part of this collaborative process with Forbidden Stories and the other media organization, more than a dozen, Amnesty Technical Security Lab, is also a partnership with the Citizens Lab, which is based out of Toronto University. Now, the Citizens Lab at Toronto University has done a lot of groundbreaking work and identified countries where these things have happened and where such spyware has been used. And they, based on their research, Sarah, WhatsApp actually went to court and challenged the NSO, the Israeli company. Now that case is still going on. So we have actually a lot of information. Now what we need is we need honesty and the will on the part of governments to take forward and genuinely address the privacy issue instead of just paying lip service to privacy I mean, this
well,
is true for all governments.
Is there an intention for that, to connect the dots? Is there a relevant government department? Is there a ministry who is going to answer